Hello everyone, my name is Akshay and today I'm sharing my presentation about day 17th challenge from IDC, and today's topics are about context managers. Here we'll be looking at with statements and custom context managers, and also the challenge is to build a context manager for safe file handling. Okay, let's look at some example. So the definition of a context manager is that a context manager helps you automatically manage setup and cleanup tasks like opening or closing a file, acquiring and releasing a lock, starting and stopping timers, etc. So these are basic operations that we use, like opening and closing, acquiring and releasing, and starting and stopping the timers are uh, those operations that we use often in programming. And to manage it uh, successfully without any interruption and with cleanup task, we use context managers. So let's see how we use it in file handling. Okay, using a context manager, I can open a file with a with statement. Okay, here you can see with open, and then I have mentioned my uh, file name, and I am instructing to read it as f, context equal to f dot read. Okay, here I am using the context manager. So what happens if I use the context manager is that file is automatically closed after the block even if an error occurs. Okay, and no need to manually call f dot close if I am opening the file with statement. Okay, so let's look at what happens if I open the file without using a context manager. Okay, without a context manager, this is a manual way. So here I have to open the file, assigning it to a variable called f, and then I have to say context equal to f dot read, then I have to use my read function. If in case here in a manual way, if I don't use f dot close function, then what happens? File stays open and uses memory or resources of this file data.txt. Okay, other processes or parts of the program can't access the file. Okay, in case of an exception, f.close is never called. So that is the reason why we have to use the context manager. So what context manager does internally? Okay, so here you can look at the basic difference between using a context manager and not using a context manager. Okay, so here in this example I have used a context manager with statement. Okay, with open file.txt as f. So here I have written my code, just imagine like that. Okay, this one is equivalent to my this much of code. Okay, here I am using try and finally, that means these are file handling with exception. Okay, if I use try and finally, if there are any kind of exceptions, then also the program needs to execute without any interruption. So for that I have to use the context manager. Okay, so this just with statement with open file.txt as f is equivalent to this whole block of program. Okay, so even if there is an error, the file gets closed. That's why context manager is equal to safer plus cleaner code. Okay, and then we look at some real world risks without context managers. Okay, here you consider the scenario of file handling. With context manager, file may remain without context manager, the file may remain open, but with context manager, the file will be automatically closed safely. Okay, And in terms of database connection, without context manager the file may not close cursor or connection. Okay, and with context manager, I mean database connection, proper cleanup after the block. Okay, and in the case of locks and threadings, we will be looking at these concepts in future days. Without the context manager, lock may not release, so that will lead to deadlocks, and with context manager we will have safely released on exit. Okay, and in networks and sockets, without context manager, sockets may stay open. This will lead to memory leakage, and with context manager automatically closed on block exit, as you have seen above. Okay, it was similar to that. Now let's look at a challenge to build a context manager for safe file handling. Okay, I have my class file manager. I have my different function to initialize, enter, exit. Okay, here you can see the program clearly. Okay, so what happens behind the scene? Okay, enter is called when with block starts, so that is called opening the file, and exit is called when the block ends, that is called closing the file. Handles the exceptions gracefully if needed. Okay, so if there are any exceptions in entering and exiting the program and during the execution, there won't be any interruption, and the files will be handled without any issues, and the process will happen in a clean manner. So this is my presentation about context managers, and kindly share your feedback, and thank you so much for your time and have a good day ahead.